What's up guys, the Red Cloak here, and today I'll be reviewing chapter 310 of My Hero Academia. And if you know the title of this video, which the second and third user of One For All has been revealed. And it's not what we think it is. But before we even get to that, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell notification so we stay notified whenever I upload a video. Now let's finally get into chapter 310 of My Hero Academia and see who is the second and third user of One For All. The last chapter was pretty self-explanatory. It was after the Muscular vs. Deku fight, and we got to know what the mid-gauntlet was. The mid-gauntlet, yes, it actually ties into the Two Heroes movie from My Hero Academia, the anime. And later we get to find out that the top three heroes, Deku and All Might, are going to team up to try to take the League of Villains down. And we know Deku's going to be used as the bait, so these guys can take down the League of Villains. And I forgot to mention, these are the fan translations, so officials come out Sunday, so always make sure of that. The chapter starts on some rainy place, and we see three civilians just saying monster, and this lady who looks like a kangaroo in my opinion. If I get that wrong, please correct me. And she is saying, no, I'm not a monster. And I'm pretty sure these are civilians claiming that this girl is a monster. I would like Horiko should actually explore what people like Tokoyami feel or how people react to them, because Tokoyami is a human, but he does have a different appearance to everyone else's. He looks like a bird with a human body with a bird head. I do think Tokoyami does receive some form of, bad looks to him, because again, he looks like something that came out of my imagination. And the lady is trying to tell him that she's not a monster, she's just scared. And these citizens are already going guns blazing and are trying to attack her. But luckily, the best Chad Deku is here to save the day. It's only a rainy day, and these citizens are already accusing somebody innocent of being a monster. So, after the Paranormal Liberation War arc, there definitely was some repercussions after the war. I think the citizens have this type of mentality saying, look, if you look like an enemy, you definitely are the enemy. And again, would you blame them? This Paranormal Liberation War arc definitely put shock and panic to these citizens. And the lady then says, and she starts crying, saying she was late to the evacuation, and she thought she could just stay at home and wait till this all blows over, but she was just so scared. And she just keeps on saying squeak, again, not a problem for her. And Deku, being the Chad that he is, gives her an umbrella. And Deku is very nice here, he's understanding. And Deku then says, look, there's a lot of panic, so of course people are going to be scared just like you. And she says, do you think everything's going to turn back to normal? And Deku says, I'm sure of it, but then Deku has to run. Deku actually runs to All Might, and he tells him to take care of the lady and get her to safety, but All Might stops him real quick and says, hold up, come back, because he has some food for him. And again, because Deku has been, fighting crime and trying to evacuate people, and he's just trying to do his due diligence, but he hasn't really eaten. Deku stands above a rooftop and then says society's really gone into a panic, and Banjo does say it's like they're in a time machine where they have no breaks. And Deku says, all for one, Shigaraki. And Dabi and the League of Villains and the escapees are already causing havoc around the globe. Banjo then says, we're completely in the dark, huh? And Deku then says that even if Aizawa and Endeavor team up on Shigaraki with All For One's powers, it's still no good. So just think about it. Even Deku thinks Aizawa can erase Shigaraki's quirks, and with Endeavor's strength, he doesn't even think there'll be enough to beat him. Deku finally says, if One For All can't put a stop to this whole mayhem, nothing will improve. And he's right. And Deku then tells all of the One For All users, mainly the second and third one, to please lend him your power. The second and third users are still facing the wall, and the first user then tells them, please help them, my heroes. And, Banjo then yells at Deku and saying to have those quirks on a handle, and that gimmick that he has to get it under wraps. And Deku says, okay. And the first user that actually talks is the third one. The third one says, we come for a history where All For One basically took over the earth. The third user then says, the people who were dominated couldn't even tell that they were being dominated or controlled, and the leaders were too scared to confront All For One. And we just see a good glimpse at the second user's face. And I will say, it kind of looks like Bako. This angle, it does look like Bako, but with a scar, but we'll talk about that later. And he just says to the first user that you would know, wouldn't you? And the first user then says, look, it took everything we had to push All For One back. The second user then says, it took everything. Either we suffer victory or we suffer defeat. And he told Deku and everyone else that they lost many lives. They sacrificed everything to at least try to push All For One back. Second user then says, you really think we could get behind somebody who wants to save his arch nemesis? It makes kind of sense, because these guys basically sacrificed everything to try to push back All For One, but to no avail. But now Deku, he wants to save All For One's successor. The first user then says, yes, it's a delusion. Sounds like a pair that also saved their nemesis. And we just see a panel of the second and third users opening up the door for the first user and extending a hand. And he just says, if you guys didn't go and save him from that room, nothing would have started. And the second user then tells him, do you really think that this kid can save the day and beat All For One? And the first user then tells him, yes, All For One will never make One For All bow to him. First user then continues saying, it's because of you extending your hand, you were able to make One For All possible, to make it pass down. So I think this is how it passed down to the second user. He extended a hand to somebody in need. And I don't know if this actually is a current, but we got to wait until the official release. But if this did happen, then the time travel theory is basically destroyed. And it seems like the second and third users have finally cooperated and tells them that, listen kiddo, we are going to go full speed ahead. And Deku says, yes sir, which ends off the chapter. Now the thing I want to talk about is the passing of One For All. Who and how did it happen? Like, we know he gave it to the second user, but how? Why? And I think it's because the second user had a righteous heart and wanted to extend his hand to somebody who needed help and who was in need, and One For All chose to go with the second user. And maybe they studied it further and noticed that this quirk, it's passable. It's very, very passable. I think that's the easiest and simple way to put it. But for the time travel theory, what about it? I do think this kind of destroys the time travel theory about Eri basically putting Kirishima and Bako in a time machine, taking them back in time, telling the first user that they can transfer the quirk and transfer it to Bako, then Bako transfer to Kirishima. Because it looks like this guy is not Kirishima, and we don't know about this Bako guy. Now, sadly, this looks like it confirms that Bako is not the second user, because if Bako was the second user, he'd probably turn around and say, what's up, Deku? And, you know, Deku would probably notice that, hey, that's Bako. How are you the second user? Explain why you're the second user. And if it was, yes, Deku would definitely comment. And if he doesn't know, then he's really stupid. How does he not know his own best friend is the second user of One For All? It's kind of hilarious. But now, does it mean that these guys could be related? It's a yes and no. But that will be all for the video, and I'll talk about that in a separate video coming out pretty soon. But I do hope you guys did enjoy this video. It has been the Red Cloak, and this chapter was definitely an 8 out of 10. It gave us a lot of information. It revealed the second and third user of One For All. But anyways, it's been the Red Cloak. I'm gonna head up out of here, guys. Peace out, and I'm out, guys. Peace. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.